So a story was told about a new pastor or a new chaplain in a leprosarium. So he read that the early signs of leprosy are loss of feeling in the limbs and was always pinching his legs. And if it hurt, he said, he was reassured. So on one occasion, at a dinner with the parishioners, he reached under the table and pinched his leg. So the pastor visibly, he couldn't feel a thing. He pinched it again, harder this time. Still no sensation. So the pastor visibly blanched and blurted out, "Oh no, I've got leprosy." So a person sitting next to him asked, "But how do you know?" Well, one of the early signs is loss of feeling in the leg. I've just pinched my leg twice and I didn't feel a thing. The person remarked, "It was my leg you were pinching, Pastor." I know somewhat a little about leprosy and what it was like to be a person with leprosy. So I was the secretary of the foundation I helped set up to help the leprous victims in a hospital situated at the edge of my previous parish assignment. It was 2007 to 2013 when I was in the Philippines. So some of them had deformed hands and feet, disfigured faces, and lost parts of the bodies like ears, nose, and other extremities due to repeated infections. Those who were cured of the disease now live with non-leprous victims in the community, but others remain inside the leprosarium. Those who stay in the hospital are either rejected or abandoned by their families or by the community and survive through government support. So whenever I visited them in the hospital for their needs, which the foundation provided, they showed reverence to me and asked for a blessing, being a priest, by taking my right hand, usually with their deformed hand, and pressed it on their forehead. So the usual Filipino custom of asking for blessing. Initially, I avoided them and did not show that I was scared being touched by them. For indeed, I was scared. And instead, I quickly stretched my right arm over their head and said the blessing. But in Jesus' time, however, religious and social taboos dictated the behavior of those with leprosy and other skin diseases. If the person was identified with leprosy, he was declared unclean. The leprous victims live in isolation from the community. They were instructed to rip their clothes and to announce their presence with loud cries, "Unclean," when moving in the community. They were cast out. If the source of leprosy healed, the law of Moses provided a purification rite that permitted the person to return to the community. In our responsorial psalm today, liken sin to leprosy. Sin is a leprosy of the soul, which disfigures it and makes a person unclean. However, the just or the upright of heart are not perfect and sinless souls. They are those who admit their sins before God. The upright cry out in their hearts, "Unclean, unclean." This confession of sin brings joy because God forgives the sin. The problem is for those in whose spirit there is guile. That is, persons who pretend to be good but are not, or persons who pretend to be sorry but have no intention of amending their lives. So any of us, I believe, can completely identify with this psalm. God promises us salvation and sanctification, and we promise to love God and one another as Christ has loved us. We are actual sinners who are on the way to the fulfillment of the covenant promises. In our gospel reading, Jesus heals the leper. The leprous victim took the initiative, approaching Jesus and asking for healing. He dared to approach Jesus, who was clean, breaking all conventions, and risking the ire of the crowd. His gesture tells us a lot about Jesus, that he is a very approachable and compassionate person, that he would not run away from us. So I would like to highlight three things found on this gospel story. First, the leprous victim's request to Jesus can be interpreted as a courageous and daring act. It is evident in his request, in his words, about his confidence, his trust in the ability of Jesus to heal him. At the same time, his request poses a challenge to Jesus, asking just how far Jesus was willing to extend himself in order to heal someone. For according to the established social norms, to touch him, a leprous victim, was a violation and would also make Jesus unclean. And then the second thing, the compassion of Jesus. Lepers were not new to Jesus. He would have come across them before. But at this time, Jesus showed the depth of his compassion. Something in man's eyes and in his manner, especially his trust, stirred Jesus deeply. His compassion bypasses the social norms and embraces the leprous victim with his healing touch. Seeing the horror on the faces of those around him, Jesus is overwhelmed with righteous anger at their failure to believe in God's compassion. Jesus acted with such compassion because he knew what it was like to be an outsider. He lived with the poor, felt with them, was one of them. He knew that to love someone, we must go out to them. We must be willing to take their place. So this reminds me of Pope Francis' favorite imagery. We must be shepherds with the smell of the sheep. So third, as we are approaching the season of Lent, this gospel story should fill us with hope. We are, in a sense, all lepers. We have all, in one way or another, been tempted by sin. And we need the touch of Jesus. Sin is ugly. It deforms, it warps and twists both our thinking and our actions, and causes us to have little regard for the needs of others. But we too have an opportunity to be healed by reaching out and touching the one who came to bring healing to each of us. Jesus wants to cure us. Of course, I want to be healed, Jesus says. He is willing to embrace us with our leprosy, the leprosy of sin. He can and will wash away, restoring the penitent to new and perfect spiritual health. Christ heals. Christ cures. St. Paul tells us, "Be imitators of me as I am of Christ." St. Paul claims he knows what Christ is like. Christ acts for the glory of the Father, not self-glorification. He acts to please the Father and to reveal what God is really like to everyone. Christ wants everyone to be saved and acts for that goal, not to benefit himself. So who knows what miracles of healing are possible if we are willing to share each other's pain or the condition of the other. So let us thank God for Jesus Christ, who forgives us of our sins and cleanses us from spiritual leprosy.